Welcome to the Mike Bates Show. This is Mike Bates. June is LGBTQ Pride Month, which is why you're seeing rainbow flags everywhere. On today's program, I'm going to talk about America's LGBT community, the origins of Pride Week, and what it has devolved into. And yes, devolve is the correct word. If I meant to say evolve, I would have said evolve. But because what I'm going to say is not the woke, namby-pamby virtue signaling everyone else is doing this month, I want to begin by putting my views on Pride Month in perspective. Not that it will matter to the intolerant mob, I know it won't, but at least I will be on the record saying it, and that is this. I completely agree with the 2003 Lawrence v. Texas Supreme Court decision that invalidated state laws that criminalize private sexual contact between two consenting same-sex adults. It was a correct ruling. It's not relevant that the arrest that led to the case was the result of a setup. It's none of the government's business, or anyone else's for that matter, what kind of sex people do in their bedrooms. And I also believe that people who are LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, and queer, that's what LGBTQ abbreviates, LGBTQ people should be treated kindly as the human beings that they are. Now, none of that will matter. I'll still be attacked for today's show because the intolerant leftist mob demands 100% compliance with their flawed ideology and their dangerous agenda. But if I stayed quiet because I was afraid the lefties would attack me if I spoke my mind, I would never be able to say anything because the lefties don't like anything I say. Because I speak the truth. And lefties hate the truth. But since I don't need their approval, I say what I want and let the chips fall where they may. So let's roll. June is LGBTQ Pride Month. Throughout the entire month, the LGBT community very publicly celebrates the way they have sex. But unlike what Democrat politicians, propagandists in the media, and woke corporations who spend millions of dollars putting rainbow flags on their products and in their advertising, my take on Pride Month will not be politically correct virtue signaling and marching lockstep in the Pride Parade, because I think Pride Month is a disgrace. So before we get into the specifics of how the Pride Month agenda is so destructive to society, let's first talk about how it came about. Why was June chosen as LGBTQ Pride Month? In June of 1969, New York City police raided the Stonewall Inn, which was a gay bar in Greenwich Village that was run by the mafia. Even though the solicitation of homosexual relations was an illegal act in New York City at the time, the Stonewall Inn was, for the most part, a safe place for gays and lesbians to gather, socialize, and to dance without anyone hassling them, except for the occasional police raid. Well, when the police raided the Stonewall Inn on June 28, 1969, many employees were arrested for selling alcohol without a license, and several patrons were arrested for the then crime of cross-dressing or for just being gay. And that raid led to 6 nights of protests and riots. And it's credited with kickstarting the gay pride movement, even though there had been smaller gay rights movements before that. And over the years, that 1969 protest has grown into a nationwide and really worldwide, although I don't think they do gay pride parades in Saudi Arabia, Iran, or North Korea. But anyway, those June 1969 riots have now become a month-long celebration of homosexuality that, at least in America, it's nearly impossible not to know about, because rainbow flags are everywhere. Most stores have them up, it's all over TV, and governments have issued proclamations. The first time the federal government issued such a proclamation was in 2000, when President Clinton established June as Gay and Lesbian Month, where we were supposed to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of the LGBT community to society, from actors to inventors to politicians, business leaders, and military personnel. And you know, to this day, There are units of the United States military that are holding special events for their lesbian, gay, and transgendered servicemen and servicewomen. I mean, service people, because who am I to presume someone's gender, right? I'm supposed to first ask what their preferred pronoun is. Otherwise, I'm a bigoted, patriarchal, cisgendered homophobe, right? And for what it's worth, the United States military is so proud of some of their Pride Month activities that their public affairs offices are sending out press releases with photos of uniformed personnel on base and on the clock waving rainbow flags and holding rainbow balloons at pride parties, along with the descriptions of what they're doing. Honest, I have received such press releases myself. And the military's Pride Month is apparently even more inclusive than just LGBTQ, because the press releases said that they were celebrating justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion for their LGBTQIAP+ members. Now, I have to admit, I didn't know what the IAP+ after LGBTQ stood for, so I looked it up. It stands for intersex, asexual, pansexual, and then the plus sign stands for everyone else who's not just a normal heterosexual. I know what asexual is. I don't know what they mean by intersex and pansexual. I'm not sure I want to know, to be honest. Well, in one case, the military's press release made a big deal about how excited they were that one of their Christian chaplains identified as LGBTQIAP+. But it didn't specify which letter he or she, whatever, identified as. Although from her traditionally female first name and her hyphenated last name, I would guess she's a married lesbian, but who knows? Not that it's any of my business, because frankly, it isn't. But apparently the United States military found it to be of such importance that they distributed a press release about it. But even without press releases, pretty much everyone in America knows what June is. If you have watched any television this month, you've no doubt seen that it's LGBTQ Pride Month. Whether it's news, commercials, or the shows themselves, it seems just about every channel has rainbow flags promoting homosexuality, cross-dressing, and body mutilation, or what is euphemistically referred to as gender confirmation surgery. Why do they do that? It's one thing for American Airlines and United Airlines to market themselves with rainbow flags because LGBTQ individuals purchase air travel. It's one thing for Absolute Vodka and Budweiser to run rainbow ads this month, because their products are for adults over 21. But it is entirely another thing when companies marketing to children do so. Yet Disney Channel, Mattel, Hasbro, and Sesame Street all did. Sesame Street? Who over the age of 8 watches Sesame Street? Disney Channel is for preteens. And while I suppose some Mattel and Hasbro toys and games are bought by adults, the overwhelming majority of their products are for kids. So why the hell do they find it necessary to pander to LGBTQ this month? Or is it not pandering? Do the people who run those companies really believe children need to be brainwashed with propaganda that promotes homosexual behavior? Or really any kind of sexual behavior? How about letting kids be kids, huh? Remember when the question for little Johnny used to be, what do you want to be when you grow up? Then it became, do you want to marry a boy or a girl when you grow up? And now the question to little Johnny is, do you want to be a boy or a girl when you grow up? Although even that last one might be considered homophobic and bigoted these days, because little Johnny isn't being asked to pick his gender when he grows up. He's being asked what gender he wants to be now, as a 5-year-old. And if little Johnny says he wants to be a girl, there are many parents and doctors who will give him estrogen hormones and testosterone-blocking drugs to make him as effeminate as possible, now, as a 5-year-old. Now, I don't know if anybody's performing sex change surgeries on 5-year-olds yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if they are. I mean, can you think of anything sicker and more abusive of a child than that? Don't answer that question out loud. We don't want to give these pro-LGBTQ activists any more ideas. But everybody, it seems, is on the Pride Month bandwagon this month. I'll give you some disgusting examples when the Mike Bates Show continues. Welcome back to the Mike Bates Show. This is Mike Bates. We are talking about June being LGBTQ AIP Plus Pride Month. Why does it seem everybody's putting up rainbow flags or changing their logos to rainbow colors? Why did the NFL, Major League Baseball, and the National Hockey League feel it necessary to change their logos to rainbow colors for Pride Month? Other than virtue signaling to the woke mob, what possible benefit is there to those sports leagues in pandering to homosexuals and the transgendered? I mean, I'm sure plenty of homosexuals and transgendered enjoy those sports. That's not the point. The point is, why do those leagues feel it necessary to market their games specifically to homosexuals and transgendered with rainbow ads? I think it's for the same reason they came out in support of the Black Lives Matter terrorists. I don't think they really have a position, but they feel they have to look like they do so they won't be criticized or boycotted by the intolerant leftist mob. But putting that aside, because I'm not saying they don't have the right to pander like they're pandering, so it's bad enough that the National Football League and Major League Baseball both changed the red, white, and blue of their regular logos into rainbow colors. It's inexcusable that Little League did it too. Yep, Little League. The baseball league for kids as young as 4 years old. Because with their T-ball leagues included, Little League is for players age 4 to 16. Little League changed their red, white, and blue logo to rainbow colors for Pride Month. Now, can you explain to me how anyone with an ounce of decency in them found it necessary to celebrate and promote homosexuality and transgenderism to 4-year-olds? Or even 16-year-olds? Why does a 4-year-old even need to know about heterosexual sex, much less homosexual sex? Why does a kids' sports league, which I acknowledge does a lot of good in the community, teaching athleticism, teamwork, and sportsmanship, why do they find it necessary to have anything at all to do with how people have sex, much less to celebrate it and promote it? And don't come back at me with, oh, Mike, this is just about teaching kids not to be bullies, because that's a bunch of crap. If it was about teaching kids not to be bullies, the message would be far broader than don't be bullies to homosexual and transgendered 4-year-olds, if there even is such a thing. But even for the 16-year-olds, if Little League's message was anti-bullying, it would be anti-bullying anyone, not just anti-bullying homosexuals and transgendered. And let me be perfectly clear here, because I know some of you people listening, if you haven't already turned off your radios, some of you listening, I'm certain, are thinking that I'm somehow being an anti-gay, anti-transgender bully on today's program. I'm not. I don't bully people at all. Even when I was a kid, I don't remember bullying people. But in the context of today's show, when I was a kid, other kids didn't go around telling everyone what kind of sex they wanted to have when they grew up. I mean, I guess by the time we were 12, we were aware of sex, but at 4, we sure weren't. But now, society is obsessed with sex, and is obsessed with homosexual sex in particular. And to promote it to little kids is inexcusable. It's disgusting. And frankly, it's dangerous. Because sexualizing little kids, even sexualizing them to heterosexual sex, is damaging. And the part about telling little kids that they can choose what sex they want to be, come on. It's a deliberate destruction of childhood and decency. And Pride Month is part and parcel to it. And we shouldn't be doing it. It's a form of child abuse. Yet it's a full court press to push the LGBTQ agenda on our children. Facebook, of course, has a rainbow flag profile pic overlay. But are you aware of their Messenger Kids product? It's a video calling and messaging app that kids use, but parents set controls on who they can communicate with. It's designed for kids under 13. Well, since the younger indoctrination begins, the more effective it is, Facebook Messenger Kids created special rainbow-colored pride backgrounds, stickers, and chat themes. And so did Instagram, which is also owned by Facebook. Hasbro and Mattel, two companies whose products are overwhelmingly geared toward children, both released rainbow-colored logos for Pride Month. It's disgusting. I mean, how young are the children these companies are targeting? So I then looked up Fisher-Price, because Fisher-Price toys start with newborns. Do you want to know what I found? No, you don't, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because you need to know. I didn't see any rainbow Fisher-Price logos on their website or on their social media, but I did see that Fisher-Price is a corporate sponsor of Proud Parenting, which is an organization that encourages same-sex parents and advocates for passage of pro-LGBTQ legislation. Kellogg's introduced an LGBTQ-themed cereal called Together with Pride. It comes in a bright purple box emblazoned with rainbow colors featuring several recognizable characters from other Kellogg's breakfast cereals. It has Snap, Crackle, and Pop from Rice Krispies, Toucan Sam, Tony the Tiger, and others. And the box has messaging on it encouraging children to choose their own pronouns. Kellogg's doesn't say what cereal is in the box, but based on the photo of the box, they look like Fruit Loops to me. And no, that wasn't a joke. The cereal pictured on the box is multicolored pieces with holes in the middle, except that these are heart-shaped pieces, whereas Fruit Loops are round, so who knows. And for every box sold, Kellogg's will donate $3 to GLAAD, which is an acronym for the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. GLAAD will use the money to support their LGBTQ+ advocacy efforts. Those were the exact words Kellogg's used in their announcement, LGBTQ+ advocacy. So Kellogg's is advocating for LGBTQ+, whatever that means. I don't know if they're doing it this year or not, but Nabisco has previously produced Oreo cookies filled with different colors of the rainbow to celebrate the LGBTQ lifestyle. Oh, but it gets worse. Sesame Street tweeted an image of their characters holding hands in a gradient color fashion to resemble the rainbow flag. And its accompanying text said, and this is a quote, "We're celebrating love in all its beautiful forms. Happy Pride Month," plus a rainbow image. Sesame Street did that. I suppose Sesame Street thinks that if anyone needs to learn about homosexuality, it's preschoolers, huh? That's not just unnecessary, it's sick. But it's all very intentional. Nothing like that happens by accident. It is all part of the agenda. It's all part of the very aggressive culture war the left is waging against traditional America and against the traditional nuclear family. PBS television has a series about a cartoon rabbit named Buster. And in one of the episodes, he visits Vermont, where he meets a bunch of children who have lesbian parents. But the married lesbian couples weren't just on camera as if it was no big deal. No. The dialogue made a big deal about having two mommies. So that indoctrination and brainwashing of little kids was very deliberate. The children's cable network Nickelodeon tweeted a compilation image showing a few of their cartoon characters, including SpongeBob SquarePants, wearing rainbow clothes or in rainbow settings of some sort. And its accompanying text said, quoting, "Celebrating Pride with the LGBTQ+ community and their allies this month and every month." And then there was a rainbow image next to that. I guess nothing says LGBTQ equality quite like a kid's cartoon, huh? Have you heard about Blue's Clues? The popular show on Nickelodeon that's aimed at preschoolers? Preschoolers! The target age group of Blue's Clues is kids 6 and younger. Well, the producers of Blue's Clues and the executives at Nickelodeon thought it was necessary to indoctrinate kids 6 and under with LGBTQ propaganda. So they produced an LGBTQ-themed video with a sing-along song with lyrics using the words, and these are quotes, "families with two mommies," families with two daddies, non-binary, trans members of this family, ace, bi, and pan grown-ups can love each other so proudly. Allies to the queer community can love their queer friends so proudly. And it concluded with Happy Pride Month. And the accompanying video showed a cartoon gay pride parade complete with a drag queen appearing prominently on screen leading the song. This is aimed at kids under 7. What the hell is wrong with these people? Now, I understand if you think that is so over the top that I certainly must have made it up. I, too, found it hard to believe until I actually saw it with my own eyes. Unfortunately, it's very real and very sick. You can see it for yourself on YouTube. Just search for Blue's Clues Pride Parade and it'll come up. I'll also put up a link to it on my blog at www.themikebatesshow.com. Even the Hallmark Channel, with their wholesome, saccharine, sweet, happily ever after traditional values love stories, had to get in on the celebration and promotion of homosexuality. So it featured two men, married to each other, adopting their first child together. And another Hallmark Channel movie featured the wedding of a lesbian couple. And after receiving criticism for it, the Hallmark Channel tweeted, quote, "We are proud of our movie Wedding Every Weekend. Our priority at Hallmark Channel is to develop a broad mix of content, characters, and stories in order to create a Hallmark experience where everyone feels welcome." End quote. An experience where everyone feels welcome, Hallmark? Where is your movie featuring a one-legged dwarf amputee marrying a 500-pound tattooed lesbian? It doesn't exist. So that can only mean one thing. Hallmark is run by intolerant bigots who hate one-legged dwarf amputees and 500-pound tattooed lesbians. Now that you've been called out as the awful people that you are, Hallmark Channel, I expect you to virtue signal with that storyline next season. You can call the made-for-TV movie Leg of Ham. Yeah, I'm sure I'll get some negative feedback for that title suggestion. Even jokes have to be politically correct to appease the holier-than-thou woke mob these days. But I've never been one to go along with the crowd when the crowd is doing something stupid. Hallmark explained their LGBTQ-themed movie, saying, quote, "Diversity and inclusion is a top priority for us, and we look forward to making some exciting programming announcements in the coming months, including announcements about projects featuring LGBTQ storylines, characters, and actors." In honor of Pride Month, Disney World and Disneyland have special LGBTQ Disney merchandise and LGBTQ food, whatever that is, throughout their parks. But if you're not going to their parks, don't worry. You can still help celebrate the way people have sex because Disney has introduced the Rainbow Disney Collection, which is clothing with rainbow-colored Disney characters, and that's sold online. And what will Disney be doing with some of the proceeds from their Pride Month merchandise? They have pledged to give at least $100,000 to the GLSEN organization, which benefits LGBTQ students in grades K through 12. GLSEN, which is spelled GLSEN, stands for the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network. It's a nonprofit organization founded by teachers and school administrators to promote the homosexual and transgendered lifestyles. Nationwide, they sponsor more than 4,000 formally recognized and registered school-based clubs to support homosexual and transgendered students. GLSEN sponsored the production of a documentary film that celebrates the contributions of LGBTQ people to society, and they encourage that film to be shown in high school classes across America. And if you think GLSEN is some fringe group that only a few teachers support, you should know that in 2002, GLSEN began a formal partnership with the National Education Association, the largest teachers union in the United States. GLSEN's teacher's manual says that middle schoolers should have the freedom to explore their sexual orientation and find their own unique expression of lesbian, bisexual, gay, straight, or any combination of these. Did you hear that? Middle schoolers. How old are middle schoolers? 10 to 14 or thereabout? I can't possibly be the only person who finds something seriously wrong with that. Have you heard about the Drag Queen Story Hour? Wait till we get back. This will completely blow your mind. I'll tell you about it when the Mike Bates Show continues. Welcome back to the Mike Bates Show. This is Mike Bates. Have you heard about the Drag Queen Story Hour? They mostly take place at public libraries, but Barnes & Noble bookstores have hosted them too. They are events where drag queens, men dressed in flamboyant female clothing with a ridiculous amount of stage makeup, are reading books to little children in the reading rooms. And these outfits these men are wearing when they read to these little kids are not innocuous. I've never attended a drag queen story hour myself, but I've read plenty of news stories about them, and I've seen plenty of pictures of these events. And in many cases, the men are wearing revealing clothes that would make a stripper blush. Things like lace bustiers that push up enormous fake breasts, skin-tight leather pants, stiletto heels, halter tops, and miniskirts that are so short, it's probably easy for the kids sitting at their feet to see that those people dressed as women are in fact men, unless they've already had that body part surgically removed. And their makeup is always over-the-top ridiculous. It's not like these men simply wear women's clothing and look like women. I've seen men dressed as women who, if you weren't told they were men, you'd think they were women. But the costumes of these drag queens are intended to make them look like clowns. Not normal clowns like Bozo and Krusty, but like clownish freaks at a sideshow. And that would be bad enough if these flamboyant drag queens were reading Dr. Seuss books. Although the woke mob doesn't do Dr. Seuss books anymore because one of his books had an illustration of an Asian guy holding chopsticks. And that's been deemed racist by the left because what? Asians don't use chopsticks? I don't know. Whatever. Whatever the reason was, it was a stupid reason. But the entire agenda of the left is based on stupidity. But getting back to the books these drag queens were reading. Don't think for a minute the books are typical, innocuous children's story books like Go Dog Go and The Little Engine That Could. No. These drag queens are reading to these little kids propaganda books that are intended to groom them into, if not living the LGBTQ lifestyle, at least celebrating it. With books like Uncle Bobby's Wedding. And yes, Bobby is a man, and so is the person he's marrying. But that makes Bobby's niece Chloe very happy, because now she has two uncles to play with. Another book is Heather Has Two Mommies, which I'm sure you can figure out from the title what it's about. But the details are that Heather's biological mother gave birth to her through artificial insemination and is raising her with her lesbian lover. At first, Heather's upset because she doesn't have a father like her friends do. But by the end of the story, well, who needs a father anyway, right? I mean, what did Gloria Steinem say? A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Another book they read at Drag Queen Story Hour is titled And Tango Makes Three. It's a children's book about two male penguins during mating season at New York's Central Park Zoo. The zookeeper steals an egg from another penguin's nest and gives it to Roy and Silo, the two male penguins who are in love with each other and who have built a nest to share. And Roy and Silo take turns sitting on the egg until a baby penguin hatches, and they live happily ever after as a family with two dads. And then there's the book titled Zach's Safari, a story about donor-conceived kids of two-mom families. It's a book for children ages 3 to 7 that explains how Zach's homosexual parents met, fell in love, and wanted more than anything to have a baby. So they decided to make one. But since making one together is biologically impossible, Zach gives readers a lesson about sperm banks, egg donors, and artificial insemination. And then after he's finally born, he and his two moms go on exciting adventures together. And let's not leave out the book King and King, which is a children's picture book about a young prince whose mother is helping him find a princess to marry. But instead, he falls in love with another prince. They get married, and the story ends with a kiss between the two kings. And then there's Daddy's Roommate, a book about a boy who was born the natural way, but when his parents divorced, his daddy got a new roommate. And yep, you guessed it, Daddy's new roommate is a man. And not the sleeping in separate beds, sharing an apartment to save money kind of roommate. Well, apparently when the boy asks his mother about it, she explains that his father and his roommate have sex with each other and that that's perfectly normal. And just so you know my sources for those plots, I haven't read any of those books. I learned their plots by looking them up on Amazon, which this could get pretty interesting at my house because I don't have an Amazon account. If I buy something from Amazon, I buy it using my wife's account. So I was logged in using her username and password when I did those searches. So it might make for some interesting husband-wife conversation next time she logs in to buy a book about vintage travel trailers, and Amazon asks her if she's still interested in buying any of the gay sex books she'd been looking at. No, honey, I was doing research for my radio show. Honest. Really, I was. Yeah, we'll see. These drag queen story hours are corrupting our children's minds with sexual deviancy at an age where they shouldn't even be thinking about normal sex acts. But by utilizing these kinds of indoctrination programs, LGBTQ advocates can proselytize very young children into supporting gay marriage, transgenderism, and other LGBTQIAP+ categories of sexual activity. It's all part of a coordinated effort to convince kids that LGBTQ is normal. It's a long-term recruitment tool. At least I hope it's long-term. Although some leftist advocacy groups like NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association, are trying to decriminalize pedophilia. It's sick. Would Barnes & Noble and the public libraries allow people who engage in the fetish of BDSM to read children's storybooks to little kids while dressed in tight leather shorts, leather bustiers, and spiked collars attached to a leash held by their dominatrix? You know, I shouldn't have said that. Because if someone who hears that asks them to, I bet they would. I mean, this is woke corporate America today. They can't possibly discriminate against a group of people that just want to not be ostracized for who they are and who they love. Unless, of course, that group of people are Christians who love Jesus or Republicans who love Trump. Then corporate America thinks it would be irresponsible if they didn't discriminate. And one more thing before I move on. Most of these drag queen story hour events are official events the library itself is doing. And in some cases, they're conducted by people who run gay bars who rent a room in the public library and put on the event themselves. But don't think for a minute these drag queen story hours are something a few activist librarians are doing on their own. These events are endorsed and promoted by the American Library Association, which encourages their members to put on these things at libraries and schools. Now, if this is the first time you've heard about this, I understand if you think I'm making it up or exaggerating it. I'm not. You know I don't say anything on this program I can't back up with facts. But I also don't want you to just take my word for it either. I always encourage you to trust but verify. So go to the American Library Association's website at www.ala.org and see it for yourself. When you get to that site, enter LGBTQ into their search box, and you'll get a ton of results showing how they're advocating this nationwide. They're proud of it. Because I knew this was going to be my topic today, I went to ALA.org earlier this week and searched Drag Queen Story Hour to see what popped up. And here are a couple excerpts from the results. This is a direct quote from the American Library Association's website. Do you wish you could do more to make your library more inclusive to the LGBTQIA+ community? There are small things you can do to welcome LGBT folks into your library. Small steps you can take to move your library and community progressively forward. You want to eventually get to drag queen story time, but you should start with something simple. Try to sneak inclusive messages into your current programs. For instance, if you're reading a book about a mama bear and a papa bear, maybe when you read it, you just change it to be about two papa bears. And here's another quote from ALA.org. The concept is simple. Drag queens reading stories to children in libraries, schools, camps, and other educational settings. Their goal is even simpler. To give kids glamorous, positive, and unabashedly queer role models. That's a direct quote. So those of you that don't like my use of the word queer, take it up with the American Library Association. I'm just reading what their website says. And lastly, before we go to the break, the First Amendment absolutely 100% allows drag queen story hour events to take place. And the First Amendment also absolutely 100% allows me to denounce them as the dangerous sexualization and harmful indoctrination of children that they are. It is disgusting that they take place. And it's disgraceful that parents allow their children to attend them. It's a form of child abuse. You think me saying that on the radio makes me an intolerant, homophobic bigot? Yeah, well, we'll address that when the Mike Bates Show continues. Welcome back to the Mike Bates Show. This is Mike Bates. So let's wrap up today's program with what makes someone an intolerant, homophobic bigot. If you're a weak, crybaby social justice warrior who's still listening to me on the radio, I'm sure you're angered by the words I've used today. And maybe you'll be writing complaint letters to this radio station demanding that they remove me from the air because you think it's hate speech. Well, if that makes you feel like you're accomplishing something, you go ahead and do that. I'll even write back if you ask me to. But I'll tell you here on the air what my response letter would say, and that is this. Name one fact I have said today that isn't accurate. You can't. Because every fact I've shared today is provably correct. Which means you'd be complaining about my opinions, which makes you the intolerant bigot. I'm not homophobic at all. My dentist is married to a man. And no, my dentist is not a female. I haven't even scratched the surface of all the pro-LGBTQ propaganda that is happening across America. And it happens year-round, not just in June. It's just more noticeable in June, because June is when all the destructive leftists join together to wage war against traditional American values. Pride Month is just another way to help fundamentally transform the United States of America. And by transform, I was referring to Barack Obama's October 2008 promise to fundamentally transform the United States of America. It wasn't until I just said that out loud that he may have literally meant to transform the country, as in transvestites, transsexuals, and transgendered. I know some of you will misinterpret today's show as me being some kind of an intolerant hater. And if that's what you want to believe, if you're only capable of seeing the world as binary, which if you support Pride Month, you shouldn't, because you're supposed to believe there are an unlimited number of genders, not just two. But if you see this kind of issue as all in or all out, and you fail to see the 50 Shades of Gray in today's program, then you need to work on your critical thinking skills. If all you can understand is either total love and acceptance or total hate and rejection, then you need to quit being such a simpleton and learn about nuance and complexity. Because despite me thinking Pride Month being so widely celebrated by government, corporations, schools, and the media is inappropriate and destructive, the fact is I couldn't care less if you're lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, or whatever. Your sex life is not my concern. As long as what you're doing in the bedroom is between two consenting adults, what you do in the bedroom is your business, not mine. But keep it in your bedroom. The public doesn't need you to march down the street wearing bottomless leather chaps and a dog collar connected with a leash to your lover who's dressed equally as ridiculous. And I'd say the same thing if it was a heterosexual couple proselytizing about their sex life. It's not my business. And it's not the public's business. And you need to quit trying to force it upon us. LGBTQ people should be treated as the human beings that they are. But this pride movement, which began as a demand that society tolerate their existence, which was not an unreasonable request, has since morphed into tolerance isn't enough. If you don't also accept everything about them, then you're a hater. Then the demand was increased from accepting them to celebrating with them. Then promotion was necessary. If you don't actively promote homosexuality and transgenderism, the LGBTQ activists consider you to be a hater. The movement has gone from tolerance to acceptance to celebration to promotion. The next step is they'll demand participation. No, thank you. So knock it off with this Pride Month nonsense. It's really gotten out of hand. The bottom line is, I don't care what kind of sex you do privately. Just quit trying to shove it down my throat. And quit trying to recruit children to join your lifestyle. I'm Mike Bates. Thanks for listening.